is very tough.
Yes, Canada is very tough.
Well, Trump just effed around and found out with these tariffs to Canada because now Ontario in Canada, the premier there, is placing a 25% surcharge on all electricity that they export to 3 of our border states, Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. That's about $100 a month per customer, 1.5 million people at least. And guess what he is saying? He said he's not going to hesitate to raise the surcharge or even shut it off completely if Donald Trump keeps this up.
And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect. And until they can join us in making credible and reliable commitments to free and fair trade. As Krista did. Yeah. And in the meantime, we will ensure that all the proceeds from our tariffs will be used to protect our workers.
From one old guy to another old guy. Stop this nonsense. Canada will never join the United States. I can tell you that my parents were not millionaires from New York. They were workers from Shawinigan. But my mother taught us good manners. She would have been ashamed of me if I had treated anyone the way that the president treated my prime minister and the president in Ukraine in the last few weeks. The reason we don't want to become American is because our values as Canadians. We are proud Canadians, and yes, in fact, we owe a debt of recognition to Mr. Trump. He has united us as never before.
Has been saying that Canada is taking advantage of the U.S., but is that really true? Let's break it down. Some people hear the word trade and think it means swapping goods back and forth, but that's not exactly right. Canada and the U.S. are buying and selling products from each other with money. Each year, the U.S. buys about $425 billion worth of Canadian goods, while Canada buys $355 billion worth of American goods. Now, some people will stop there and say, see, the U.S. is subsidizing Canada, but that's not true. It just means the U.S. is purchasing more from Canada than Canada does from the U.S. Now, keep in mind, neither country is required to buy anything from the other. Now let's zoom in. Canada has about 40 million people, while the U.S. has 340 million people. That's a huge difference. With so many more people, the U.S. naturally needs more resources than Canada does. Here's where it gets interesting. This works out to America spending, on average, about $1,200 per person per year on Canadian goods. But Canada spends about $9,300 per person on U.S. goods. So even though the U.S. buys more in total, Canadians are spending way more per person on American product.
Big news right now, it's official. Canada's province, Ontario, has implemented a 25% surcharge on electricity imports into the United States, regardless of whatever Donald Trump is doing with tariffs. This surcharge will impact people in 3 states, New York, Minnesota, and Michigan, and have taken effect today. Now, it's interesting. Remember, Donald Trump previously said that he's suspending tariffs on USMCA goods until April 2nd. Well, Ontario's premier, Doug Ford, is not waiting around for Donald Trump anymore. He's instituting his own penalties regardless of what the Trump administration is doing. And now people in Minnesota, New York, and Michigan will suffer because of it. You will pay more in electricity. He has been making these threats for a long time, and now Doug Ford is acting on the threat. So it shouldn't come as a surprise to folks in these 3 states. Now, I'll do a full breakdown on what this all means to you on my Substack shortly, so be sure to subscribe for free at the link in my bio. As always, comment below your thoughts, spread the word, and follow along to stay up to date on all the news that you need to know about. More to come.
Well, Ontario just slapped the United States with a 25% increase on all electricity coming in the United States. Let's talk about it. Ontario's Premier Ford says effective today, Monday morning, there'll be a 25% increase in all electricity coming into the United States for more than 1.5 million Americans. And this is in response to Trump's tariffs. Ford went on to say this morning that Trump's tariffs are a disaster for the economy of the United States. They're making life more expensive for American families and businesses. And he went on to say that until the threat of tariffs is gone, they're not backing down. Canada is going nowhere. Ford's office says not only is there a new tariff, but there's new market rules. Every generator that supplies any electric to the United States is required to put 25% surcharge on top of that immediately. It says it's going to generate anywhere from $208,000 to $277,000 a day. So New York, Minnesota, Michigan, it looks like you need to get ready for a lot higher electric bill. Ford says this is in addition to the retaliatory tariffs they put on orange juice, peanut butter, coffee, appliances, footwear, cosmetics, motorcycles, certain pulp, and paper product. So the new leader, Carney, said he's just begun to come at the United States. He's just begun to bring the fire to Trump into the United States economy. What do you guys think? Do you think there's something we don't know about? What leg are they standing on coming up against America and China at the same time? Tell me in the comments below. What do you think about this and this response?
Breaking news, Ontario just hit the United States with a 25% electricity surcharge. Is the trade war heating up, or is this just politics as usual? Guys, we gotta talk about this. So, Doug Ford just fired back at Trump's tariffs, slapping a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to U.S. states like New York, Michigan, and Minnesota, and will now pay millions more for power. Ford says this is a direct response to Trump's trade policies, and he is not ruling out cutting off exports entirely if tensions continue to rise. This move could impact over 1.5 million American homes, sparking fresh debates over U.S.-Canada relations and whether Trump's tariffs are backfiring. That is what we want to know from you, the viewer. Is this a smart counter move or a reckless decision that punishes consumers? Drop your take in the comments. We want to know what you have to say.
So with Canada, by putting tariffs on some pretty important products like oil, gas, lumber, and steel. And in response, our genius of a prime minister decided to put a 25% counter tariff on, and this is straight from ChatGPT, so you know it's true, orange juice, eggs, peanut butter, and coffee. That is the saddest and most Canadian response I can imagine. Trudeau literally just went, "Oh yeah, you're gonna devastate the entire backbone of the Canadian economy? Pfft, good luck finding a healthy, balanced breakfast anytime soon, losers." Oh, we're so fucked.
I'm just not buying blueberries from California right now.
Are you doing anything to support Canadians amid the trade war?
Yeah, like groceries, me and my fiance, like we're making a concerted effort and just buying Canadian. Even like our trips, we were thinking of traveling like somewhere down south, and we're like, you know what, probably not. Rather not have our dollar go to them.
I think it's time to really like seek out Canadian and start putting our money towards our own economy.
Just buy local.
Why do you think it's important that we do that?
Support Canada. Very important.
News from Canada, they just imposed 25% tariffs on all electricity exports. Guess what that means? They're firing back. And they're going to fire back against things that you absolutely have to have. I mean, unless they're going to go and just hit the breaker, or you're going to go run down to your local store and buy some electricity. I guess you can go out and buy American-made generators, but that's not too inexpensive either. But those 25% tariffs, they're going to hit hard where the area of the country that relies on that electricity. You may not be paying more for this or that, you think right now, but you're going to be paying more in other ways, in other areas. And when it comes to rebuilding all these houses in California and North Carolina, and forget that new barn you want to build, right? Because the wood and materials is going to be ridiculous. You remember we were paying for plywood back then? All right. Best of luck.
On March 6th, Democrats introduced the bill H.R. 1936 to prohibit funds for the armed forces to engage in operations to invade or seize territory from Canada, the Republic of Panama, or the self-governing territory of Greenland. And I didn't know this, but this bill has been introduced by the Democrats. And I think that's just the level of seriousness we're at.
He can say all of that. But the damage is done. This is not a win for America. The tariffs and Ukraine, NATO, and Europe, it's all part of the same story that Donald Trump is writing the world order. And that order has kept us, barring a few kind of, problems in the Balkans, but minor steam releases, has kept the Western Hemisphere aligned and peaceful. And the question is, what happens when you dismantle that order?
Reconcile this for me as well. Donald Trump on October 2nd, 2019, praised himself on Twitter. He said, we just renegotiated the NAFTA deal. We're now calling it the USMCA with Canada and Mexico. This is a phenomenal deal. That's the deal. That's been the deal that's been in place. The Biden administration adhered to it. He said it was the greatest trade deal ever. It's 4-5 years later. He's now saying who negotiated this bad deal, and he now wants to put tariffs on his own trade deal. So reconcile that for me. Be the trading czar, be his commerce secretary, be Peter Navarro. Channel your Peter Navarro and tell the American people, the UK citizens of the world, why this is good for the United States, the plan that's afoot.
I think he always wanted to do tariffs. He has always believed in them. You hear him talking in the 1980s, the 1990s, and he clearly thinks tariffs are a good weapon. He has always felt that countries that have a trade surplus with the United States are somehow abusing their privileges of having access to the American markets.
I know these countries really took us for some. See, this is just some of the products that we sell to Canada that they have tariff on, that we're selling them. See? This is just some of the products. Yeah, take a look at almost 300% tariff on peanut butter. Almost 300% on butter. So we say, yeah, you know what? We're tired of the abuse. We're tired of this fuck. We want 25%. 25%. That's all we want. And these motherfuckers are losing their shit. They're crying bloody murder. The death to Canada is on for 25% tariff that we're asking for. They can hit us with almost 300% in products that we're trying to sell them. But we ask for 25% and death to America. We're so evil. We're the worst set of neighbors in the entire fucking world, right? But then China says, we're putting 100% on Canada. And Canadians say nothing. Matter of fact, the liberals in America ain't got shit to say about that. So pretty much, the United States of America should just be a very beautiful, attractive hoe. And then the rest of the world should be our pimp, huh? Because everything that we make, we should give to them, the rest of the world. But anytime we ask for anything in return, we're horrible and we're disgraceful and we should be ashamed of ourselves and we don't deserve anything. Is that right? Yeah, we gonna need all the true patriots to let Donald Trump know. Stand with you, bruh. We, the American people, 10 toes down. We stand with you. You got this.
Ontario, Canada Premier Doug Ford has announced that they're putting a 25% tax increase on electricity exports to the United States. So 1.5 million Americans in Minnesota, New York, and Michigan are about to see their power bills go up.
Let me be clear. I will not hesitate to increase this charge. If necessary, if the United States escalates, I will not hesitate to shut the electricity off completely. Believe me when I say I do not want to do this. I feel terrible for the American people because it's not the American people who started this trade war. It's one person who's responsible.
This new surcharge could bring Ontario 400,000 Canadian dollars per day, which they say they'll use to support Canadian families and workers. And this is in addition to the tariffs that Canada has already placed on goods like orange juice, peanut butter, and even motorcycles. Trump's trade war has sparked complete chaos, and countries are fighting back. Premier Ford also called for Alberta to tax oil exports to the U.S., and we are highly dependent on Canadian oil. 25% of our oil imports come from Canada. And the Canadians have something that the U.S. doesn't right now, and that's unity and resolve. So they may be smaller, but they're going to put up a fight. Now, the stock market also seems to be continuing its fall. And in the past, this was enough to push Trump. We'll see if it still is.
Y'all, I had someone comment on one of my videos that the new prime minister in Canada was like their Kamala Harris. So, of course, naturally, I had to go, look up everything about him to be like, wait, what's this guy all about, So here is everything you need to know about Mark Carney, the next Prime Minister of Canada. Okay, so big picture, he is basically like the world's ultimate crisis manager and has saved the world economically, not just once, but twice. In 2008, during the world financial crisis, he took on the role of governor of the Bank of Canada and basically made all the moves to help Canada recover faster than a lot of other peer countries. But his leadership through all of that got him noticed, and then he became the governor of the Bank of England and helped all of them through in 2013. And him taking on this role was a lot of firsts, historical firsts. He became the first non-Brit to ever run the Bank of England, and he also became the first person ever to run two different national country banks. And he did it all under these two crazy economic circumstances that I'm sure were not very easy situations to be in when you're trying to get your feet wet and stuff. And anyone who's made it this far that I may be losing now because you're thinking oh, he's just some money tech bro, whatever. No. Because then in 2020, he leaves the world of global finance to fight climate change with the UN. And now he's stepping into politics for the first time. He's never held public office before this. And according to my comments on another Mark Carney video I did, just talking about him being elected, people were saying that they loved him and that they were super excited and everyone was ecstatic and that he was super polished and super competent and they really considered him capable of maybe what Trudeau couldn't do, which is stand up to Trump on the global stage. So yeah, that is your breakdown on Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada, and I hope it was helpful because all it did for me, aside from that, is just make me even more jealous of Canada than I already was. So.